In this video, we're going to go over how to price your app. And that's an important question because you'll see, I'm sure you've experienced some apps you may or may not have paid money for, whereas other apps, many apps that you probably find more useful than some of your paid for apps as free. And so we're going to go over this in this video. So some of the questions that most people will ask me is, should I make my app free or should I make it paid? And if I make it paid, how much? And if I make it free, how do I make money from it? Is it through in-app purchases, which is IAP, through advertising, or through something else? And I do recognize that not all apps are necessarily there for making money. Some of them may be for lead generation or just awareness, education. There's a lot of different purposes. But for this video, overall, I'm just going to assume that you want to monetize or make money from your app efforts. And that's the route that we'll be going with this video. So the word freemium has become very popular in the last few years. And that's kind of the model of where basically you can download and install the app for free, but there would be several different upgrades or in-app purchases that users have the option of making where they would pay money for it. And as app publishers, we need to make it enticing enough for people to want to pay money for those upgrades in the freemium model. So before I go more into that, here are some stats. From doing some research, between 84 and even 90% of all apps in the app stores are free. And that's very significant. I mean, that's a huge number. The large majority of apps are free in the App Store. Over 70% of revenue comes from free apps through in-app purchases. So that's that freemium model that I'm talking about. Over 70% comes through in-app purchases. And about 25% of revenue comes from paid apps, and 5% of that is through in-app purchases. So about 20%, I'd say, is through actually paying for the money up front, and then another 5% is through not only just paying for the app up front, but also adding to it by paying for more in-app purchases. Now keep in mind, free gets at least 10 times, and often, I mean, that's pretty conservative. Oftentimes it'll be 20 times or more increased downloads over paid apps. So let's say on a given day you're getting 100 downloads for a paid app. You are potentially leaving 900 downloads to, let's say, 2,000 downloads if you were to make it free. And so that's the trade-off. If you're making it paid, you capture a much smaller market and a much smaller user base. If you do make it free, you will get a lot more people trying out or using your app, or at the very least downloading your app. And that could be anywhere from 10 to 20 or 30 times the amount of downloads you would get if you were to make it free. So some tips on free apps. Like I said, 84 to 90% of people are, or apps on the App Store is now free. And so freemium is what people are expecting for the most part. It's what most apps are on the App Store. And so people are becoming more and more familiar with that. And it is a model that you should seriously consider adopting unless you have a very compelling reason to make your app paid. And I'm going to go into some of those details in the next slide. So especially if there's a lot of competition, free is the way to go, because eventually, as many players and a lot of competitors come on into the space, there is going to be a free version anyways. Having said that, free is excellent if there is paid competition. So if there's a really popular app right now, app or game that's out there, and it's the only version of its kind, and it's paid, let's say it costs like $2.99 to buy, you'd be in an excellent position if you were to come out with a competitor to that app, something that does something very similar, but it's using the freemium model, because you already know it's a proven idea or a proven formula or a proven app idea, and it's worthwhile to create a freemium version because you'll get that much more market share compared to someone who's charging for that same type of app. However, you must have a plan on how to monetize a free app. And so there's several different strategies. And so in-app purchases is one of them, and that must flow well with the purpose of the app. And so, I mean, charging to say, hey, pay me $1 and I'll remove all these advertisements in this app, that's no longer really compelling anymore. I mean, you still may make a little bit of money from that, but you want to really have something that ties very well into your app and is almost one of those, it's almost like a no-brainer for someone to say, oh, I totally could use that in this app. And so it does require some thought, but the better you integrate it with the purpose of your app, the more money you'll make. And lastly, ads are an option, but it can be a turnoff for some people, especially if ads are excessive. And I don't know if you've ever downloaded an app where they're just constantly throwing up ads. I've experienced that. I've also created apps like that with limited success. And I think people are just, they're tired of seeing too many ads. And so you just need to really balance that out and maybe put up ads tastefully and in spaces that aren't too obtrusive. But it is another way of monetizing a free app. So it's something to consider. And it may be a combination of in-app purchases plus a few advertisements. And again, your ultimate goal may not even be to make money. It may be just for lead generation or for awareness or for education. But these are all things to consider if you were to make your app free. And some strategies for a paid app. Paid apps are still a good option. And I've actually made a lot of money with paid apps. Actually, between my paid and free apps, I've made more, for one of my apps anyways, specifically, I've made more money from my paid version than I have with my free version, even though I've gotten like 20 or 30 times the amount of downloads or more actually with my free version. But paid apps are still a good option, especially if you're first to market. So if something new comes up and you create an app that caters to something new or to something that's trending, and you're one of the first to the market, you can charge a premium for that before other competitors come in with a free version. So again, if there's low competition, there's not a lot of players, charging for the app becomes a lot easier. And lastly, if it's sticky, and what I mean by sticky is if it's high value and often used. So if it's a utility app or something like a game that's really attractive and people are always using it on a daily basis, people are more willing to spend money on something that they're going to find useful on a consistent and regular basis. So if you have high sticking power for your app, it's much easier to demand or command a price on it and charge money for it. So you also want to test your pricing, and I would start at $1.99 because that's 99 cents to $1.99. That's kind of that impulsive buy. People are willing to spend it just to try things out even. I'd start at $1.99 so you can easily discount it. You can have a half off sale and charge 99 cents at times to promote it. But you want to test it out. So you want to start at $1.99, but try dropping it to 99 cents. Try raising it to $2.99 or $3.99. And I've actually done this with some of my apps, and I've found that 99 cents is not the way to go. I actually make more money charging $2.99 than I would at $1.99 or $3.99. So you kind of have to try that out for a couple of weeks at different price points and see what kind of money you make and what kind of response you get with your app at different price points. Because what you think the best price would be for your app may not necessarily the best return on your revenue. And lastly, consider having two versions of your app. And what I mean by that is have a free version and a paid version concurrently. And I've done this with several of my apps and made money both ways. And so I in my mind, I think, well, if I didn't have a paid version, I'd be leaving some money on the table. So it is something to give some thought if you can limit features or add some advertising in the free version. And then for the paid version, you'd have some additional features or no ads. It is something you could have, like a free version and let's say like a pro version that's paid. It's something that's definitely worth considering and seeing if it's, or even just testing to see if it's worthwhile to do so. And ultimately, this is another business decision on whether you want to have a free or a paid app. And just in the last few slides, I just wanted to go over the pros and cons of each type. And but you do have to make a final decision on whether you want to go free or paid. And even though free is much more popular right now and seems to be where everything is trending, I wouldn't discount the paid version. And it really depends on what your app does and how the market responds to it.